So to start off with, let me introduce myself. My name is Mohamed Sharkawi. The cooler version is Mo Sharkawi. And I actually come from a family of musicians. So my father plays the ney. My brother sings. My uncles, and I have a lot of cousins who play many different types of instruments. And I wish I could tell you that this is what shaped my musical background. But in reality, I have a confession to make. So what shaped my musical background is, or let me say my entrance into the musical world was these guys. And before judging me and thinking that I'm not cool enough like you, I was born in the 80s, and for people my age, I think avoiding these guys was not an option. I remember I was 9 years old when I first heard their first hit single, which was called We've Got It Going On. And I heard it from a friend, and I actually got the cassette at that time, borrowed it from a friend to share it with my siblings. And we spent the whole day just dancing to this song. So these guys were ingrained basically in my DNA. But other than that, yeah, there's more to come. Yeah, more cooler stuff coming on. So I got into the rap world a little bit. I got also into rock. I got into metal. And soon enough, I started playing music. So I picked up my first musical instrument when I was 11. I started playing piano. Didn't really find or didn't really connect with the instrument much. But it was something that I had to do by my father, because it was his dream that he finds his son also a musician. But then when I was about 15 years old, I really connected with the guitar, and I started playing guitar ever since. And eventually, during university days, I formed a band with a couple of friends of mine. I don't think you would know us. I mean, barely anyone in our hometown knew us. But we actually enjoyed just like playing music together and performing. And then this happened. So after university, this happened. And I always had this dream within me that I really want to be a musician. I felt I have it. I felt I have, whenever I play music, people connect with what I have to share. But soon enough, just like many of our dreams that some of us might have that get drowned by the corporate world, I started thinking that this is not a reality. And I soon enough joined a multinational American IT company, one of the biggest IT companies. I was doing sales there. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, I had this haunting dream, basically, that I want to be a musician. And then soon enough, I was on a business trip in Prague. And while I was in this magical city, so I was near Prague Castle. For anyone who's visited Prague, maybe it's even clear here. I don't think it is. I was there, and then I could hear this amazing, mysterious sound, and I couldn't tell what type of music it is. I couldn't tell if it's a guitar, if it's a piano, I couldn't tell what. It was different than anything that I've ever heard. But what I know is that it really touched me that day. And I kept following the sound, trying to know where is the sound coming from. And soon enough, I got led into one of the alleys in Prague. And at some moment, I was completely alone. And I found this about 75-year-old young man. And he was sitting down, and he had this strange instrument in his hand, and he was playing with it. And I just stood there, and I like enjoyed the moment. There was a magical moment at that time. Something inside opened up. And when he was done, I'm like, okay, how much? Dubai style. No, in reality, when he was done, I was super excited. I knew that this was one thing I was gonna do. I asked him if I can possibly try it, and guess what? The minute I started playing, the first minute I touched it, I immediately started composing songs. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit romantic, but I feel that I was basically meant to do this. everything that I've done in my life, whether the music that I've performed or my musical background or anything that I've done on the music world, it led me to that point. So I started asking him a couple of questions, and then he had to go, unfortunately. And I couldn't really get to know, like, what is it about this instrument and to understand a little bit more about it. This is what it looks like, by the way. I know it looks like a spaceship or like a walk, but it was a big question to me. But I got to know one thing from that man before he leaves, is that he bought it from Switzerland in Bern, and I was supposed to spend the weekend in Prague, but I changed the plans. So I'm like, I'm going to Bern. I'm going to find out more about this instrument. I'm going to buy one from over there. And then I started my research, and I found out that it was invented recently by a company called Pan Art, which is basically a musical instruments company that makes instruments from pans. Yeah. And I got to know a little bit more that it's actually an evolution of a very old instrument called the steel pan, which is from Trinidad and Tobago. So this, maybe you've seen this before. It's pretty familiar in reggae type of music, and it's got a very cheerful, soulful type of sound. And it started in the 1880s. So Felix and Sabina Roner, they were really into reggae music, and they were really into the steel pan musical environment. And then they basically asked themselves one simple question, which led them to the Hanpan. So they asked, how can we make a steel pan that we can play with our hands instead of mallets? Very simple question, right? So although the instrument existed for ages, for about 200 years, or even more, about 250 years actually, nobody asked this simple question of, how can I make one that I can just play with my hands instead of the mallets? And they started in 1993 with the concept. So they asked themselves this question in 1993, and they kept working on it for 7 years straight. All right, it was their dream to make a steel pan where you can play with your hand. And eventually in 2000, the handpan came to birth, which is a super special instrument, in my eyes at least. And then what I found out before booking the tickets to Bern is that in 2013, they decided they will not produce the instrument anymore. Imagine you created something out of scratch, and you are the best person who can make this, and then you suddenly decide you will not do this anymore. There's a lot of question marks. Nobody really understands the true reasons. It's still kept to themselves. Yet, what we know is that some of the values that both Felix and Sabina stand up to is that they are against mass production. They are against standardization. A lot of things that they really stand up for, and they think that they're really advocates for small businesses, and they want the business world to be more personalized. So this is what I at least understood from their story. So my search began for the instrument, because now Pan Art doesn't produce it anymore. So the first thing that I thought, I'm like, okay, there gotta be a Chinese replica somehow. And surprisingly, there isn't a single person in China that produces hang drums until very recently. So, but I found about 20 other people at that time who make handpans, and I started spamming them day and night. I want one, I want one, I want, and no one's replying to me, all right? Until finally the answer came from Colombia. Finally, yeah. So I actually traveled all the way from Dubai to Colombia to buy a musical instrument. It was very hard to describe and explain this to my parents, but this is what it was. Everyone thought I was going for different purposes, but no. And And this is why I actually went all this way, because what I experienced afterwards for a couple of months until I was able to put my hand on my first Hanpan is that I felt a feeling of separation. I felt it was like a love story, seriously. Okay, it's like someone I know, after the moment that I met this guy, someone that I know who is very dear to me, and he disappeared from my life. Or she disappeared from my life. And so this is how really I really wanted it. And this is the picture from, yeah, in Colombia in 2015 when I first got my first Hanpan. Yeah, I don't know if I was crying before it or not, but yeah, this is it. And ever since, I really delved into the world of Hanpan. It's something that I do on a daily basis. People ask me, how frequently do you practice? For me, I don't think that I'm practicing, honestly. It's just something that happens really naturally and that I absolutely love. So ever since I started performing, I performed in about 10 different countries in about five different continents. And I started off with my brand, basically. Let me tell you a story before that. People would usually come to me after my performance and they would tell me, like I would get many different types of feedbacks. Someone would tell me, you really touched my heart. Someone would tell me, like I feel this music really enters my soul. I think the best feedback that I got is someone came up to me after a performance. He's like, I just feel that half of the problems in my life disappeared. So this is what I'm trying to do. So I established the brand Panspiration, where I'm basically trying to inspire people in many different aspects with a pan. And would you like to see the instrument by any chance? Yeah? Okay. This is what it looks like. This is for you, This is for you. All right. So,
You are a devil.
sorry?
You are a devil.
Adele?
Devil. Devil.
Devil! Oh, yeah. Cool. All right. So actually, so if you want to connect, by the way, so this is my Instagram account. If you want to connect afterwards, so it's if you search Panspiration, you're going to find it there. And just one last thing that I wanted to, two last things that I want to share with you actually. First is basically some of the basic features of a handpan, basically. All right. So what makes a handpan so special? All right. So there's a couple of things. I'll choose just the main ones that stand out. So sympathetic resonance is one of the things. One of the magic things about handpans is basically when you play on one note, and then another note activates and makes a slight sound in the background. It gives this magical feeling. It gives the mind can't really interpret what is happening here. You get what I mean? So this is why the mind relaxes and kind of like submits to the sound. Sustain is one of the other things as well. As you notice, the sound, it takes like a long time where the sound is still on. Harmonic sounds is also one of the main things about it. And then last thing I can maybe also share this with you. So the handpan is both, it's both a melodic instrument and a percussive instrument at the same time. So you can play something, for example, like, which is melody, right? Or you can add also, which is percussion at the same time. So it's a mix of both. And then the last three aspects, which is the ding and the sound of the tact, maybe first, which helps also contribute to the beats. It's also one of the things that makes the handpan special and the different sounds. Excuse me. Yeah. So, and just one more thing. It's made out of steel. So the reason there's only a few people who make it worldwide is that it's all handmade, and to make that sound just from steel is a magical process. And not a lot of people were able to capture it, and this is why there's not even a Chinese replica until now, except for one person, a friend of mine actually. So yeah, it's made out of steel. The circles that you see around it is basically the notes. So when I tap the notes, it makes the sound, the music that you hear. And before I leave you off, so just to share with you, I dropped off from my corporate job because this dream has been haunting me for some time. And I think I'll be doing this for some time as well, just to build it and to fulfill at least my dream on this level. But I think honestly, I will be back to the corporate world. I'll be back to the business world because I also love that one. I know it's sometimes many of us have different talents or different passions in life, and sometimes they feel, oh, I wish I can just drop off from my job and do this. And now that I'm on the other side of the world, yeah, I'm saying I think I would want to be back, and I also enjoy doing business. So I'll be eventually back again. And before we end, we'd like to leave you also with one final song, and we'd like to actually observe Earth Hour. So Earth Hour maybe it passed, yes, but we will still observe it. And we'll be playing one last song. So Tamer, if we can dim the lights a little bit, and yeah.